So the objective basically actually is to do something like this one. Count up, down, and then reset. So if I click on count up, it just keep incrementing. Count down, decrement, and reset, just go back to 0. That's just a very simple thing. But I'm going to use this example just to explain different things, how to use inner classes, or how to use something new called anonymous inner classes. And this is the anonymous inner classes are mainly the ones that we're going to be using. But just let's introduce one step at a time. So let's just start, for example, just for this one. You see now, in order for me to have this code working, I had to implement the action listener. But I made my frame implement the action listener. There's another way to make this work without having this to be implemented in the action listener, is to have an inner class. I'm going to create, to define an inner class that is going to be able to just do one simple thing, is to implement that interface, the action listener. And then I'm going to attach this new instance of the inner class to this action listener here. So you see now, as soon as I remove this implements action listener, this add action listener here, it is not working because it tells me that this is an incompatible type. This is not an action listener. It cannot, this class cannot be converted to an action listener because it does not implement it. It does not inherit from it. I cannot do this kind of upcasting that I was able to do before. Now, but what I'm going to do this. I'm going to create a private class that I'm going to call it like this button, this count up, that is going to be implementing the action listener. And this count up, basically it will have only one thing. Now this is a class, so it can have constructors, etc., but I don't need all those other things. I'm going to use it only to generate, to deal with the action listener. Action performed is going to do this. Notice one thing. Now these are declared inside the class. Let me just move it down, so it will be, okay, no, it will be maybe better. So I'm at the bottom of the class. It doesn't matter. I just would like to put it at the bottom, so I just would like to show you that this value here, it was declared not inside the inner class, but inside the outer class. You remember I said one of the advantages of having an inner class is that inside the inner class you can have access to the outer class private members. And actually the opposite is also true. You can also access everything that is private inside the inner class, because if something is declared into a block, it is known inside the whole block and sub-blocks inside of that. So which means now I have this now new class that I coded count up, and it implements the action listener, and it has this action performed. Now how can I attach this to the button? Well, I just need to create a new instance from that inner class. Now by doing this, what I'm saying is that this is going to be a new count up that is going to be dealing with only the action performed. So every time I run now, when I click on this count, it's going to work the same way it was working before, but this time using an inner class. So, but the advantage of an inner class is that if I have more than one button, I can have many inner classes, each one dealing with the button. And that's the possibility of having that. Yes?
Why we don't can you go up?
I'm going up, yes?
Why you don't put the button counter inside the class?
The button counter inside the class. What do you mean the button counter? This one?
Yes.
What did I put it where?
Inside the class.
The inner class?
Count up, yes.
Yes, that's a good question. Why? I mean, your question is that why didn't I do this, something like this, for example, right? Now, if I do something like this, I'm going to lose a very basic information. Basically, when this code is going to be executed, only when I click on a button, something, right? But how I did not attach this to a button to make it that it's going to be executed. Actually, I need to mention that this should be the action to do when I click on the button before I do the things that should happen when I click on the button. Because this code, these two lines are going to be executed only after I click on the button. But then if I don't specify that when I click on a button this code should be executed, it will never be executed. So this has to be outside. This has to be before, just to prepare. That I'm just saying now this count up is going to have the code on what to deal when I click on that button. So that's why this could not be inside this code here, because this code is only executed when I click on that button. But if I don't have this executed, I cannot link this code to the button, because if I remove this here and put it down here, the result is this button. Oh, weird. Yeah, so actually this is, it's doing something more than what I thought. Actually, I forgot about it, because actually, you know what happened? Let me just start at the beginning. So I click the first time. Now if I click on this, what happens? Because this I left this one here and added this one here, that's why it became a problem. Now I understand. Now if it already has there, and then it's created a new, it added another one to the same, so it's just, as you can see, it keeps kind of doubling. There's so many of them executed, and it's going to become confusing. Now basically what I wanted to do is to remove this one and put it here. Now that's why I got confused. Now doing so, I can just keep clicking as long as I want, because in the code here nothing says that this code here is attached to this button, because the code that was doing that is this line, and I just put it inside of what is executed after I click on a button, but I did not attach the execution to the button. So it's not working. Now this thing here is what I should do. When you prepare your button, you want something that your button will do. You just mention that, okay, my button is going to be doing whatever this class is implementing, and this class is implementing this action listener, and this is the code of it. Now running is going to be resulting in the normal work of the button. If I click on it, it's going to keep adding. So, but what I wanted you to realize is that, I mean, if I have many buttons, this is a better option than having another one. However, the other option that I had, if you remember, what was it? Before, when I had this implements action listener, there was something like this. Even if there were many buttons, there's another way to distinguish between which one is which, and I'd like to maybe introduce that one too. So let's just add another button. Let's call it countdown. So I'm going to, now I need to rename this counter. I'm going to rename this because now I will have two, so I will call it count up, and another one with countdown. So this instead of being count, I'm going to call it count up, and this is the one that has this, I have this listener, and then I'm going to have also countdown, and call it countdown, and attach the same listener. But I would like to be able to distinguish between them, but you see, I'm seeing only one. Why? Well, I created it, but I did not add it. So I need to add it to be able to see it. Now if I run it, I'm seeing it. However, it's not on the same line because there's no space. If I want to have it on the same line, just maybe increase the size and maybe make 350, something like that, and run it again. Still not enough. Let's make it 400 maybe. it's okay. So now I have these two. Now the problem is that if I click on this one, it goes up. This one also goes up because both of them they're pointed to the same code. Now what I need to do, I need to have something like an if. If there's a condition that is true, I'm going to make this one, else I just like to have value minus minus. And then, but I need to put something, how to know which one generated this thing. Well, there's a way. You see this here, this action event. This action event allows you to get some. Okay, so I said this action event is a parameter. The information on which button was clicked is embedded here. So if I can get it by doing e dot and see who is going to give me the information. This get action command, actually this is the one that is going to probably give me that, because this get action command is a text. And what kind of text? Well, it's a text that says what's the text of the button that was doing that generated this call. The text of the button, I have two buttons, one that says count up and one count down. So if the action of the command is count up, I know that this is the button who wants me to go up, so I will do this thing here. I can also, if it was count down, it's going to be the opposite. So now if I just stop again and start running, now if I go for this count up, it keeps incrementing. But if I go counts down, it just keeps going down. So now these two buttons are managed with the same method, but I can distinguish between them with this get action command. With basically the get action command is just one simple thing, is the text of the button that generated the event. That's it. Yes. Well, personally, I don't like to have everything in one place, so it's better to have a separate one for each one of them. So basically what I prefer is not to have this one, but to have each action listener be inside of a different inner class. So I will be having, for example, inner class private class count up that implements action listener, and then it will be only implementing the action listener, so this action performed, and which basically is going to be this. Or maybe let me put something, you know what, let's shorten this. I can just do everything in one line by doing something like this. You remember the plus plus before, after? Yes. Plus plus before means this is the first thing that is going to happen, and after means this is the second thing. So now if I do this, means you're going to increment the value first and then display it. Now I'm going to do something similar with another class, countdown, which also implements the action listener. The only difference is that this is going to be minus minus. Now instead of having the this, so for the button count up, I'm going to create a new count up, and the other one is a new countdown. Now I'm not using this anymore, so I'm just going to just put it as a comment. I just would like to leave it so you can use it later if you want to, but I will need to just uncomment it just to make sure that you don't get confused what happened. I don't know. Oh no, I just want this to be commented. Now this is not valid anymore. This is the class now. Inside this class, notice that I have now two inner classes, one called countdown, count up, and that is going to be inside this same my first frame. And notice these two columns here means that this is the class, and this is a subclass of this superclass. So it has superclass JFrame. So it tells you just here as some kind of a summary is what's going on in your class. And inside this countdown is implementing the action listener. That's why you see this same thing. And then it has only this action perform inside of it. Now running this again just to make sure it works. This count up is counting up. Now this time with this inner class, counting down with the inner class. Yes.
Why do you make the classes private?
Well, that's a good question. Why make it private? Because these classes are not meant to be used from outside, because they're doing a job of just helping this class to work. So I don't want somebody to be having access to it. But for this case, it doesn't matter really that much. Yes.
Making a lot of inside classes will make the program slower, or
No, there's no kind of slow thing that's going to happen. No, not. This is maybe if you have many of them, it's going just to maybe take more memory. But since these classes do not have a lot of, they'll have a lot of variables in them, so they're not going to be reserving some space in the memory as much as. Now these are just some kind of code that's going to be run when needed. So it's not really that much a lot of them. So we've seen two ways, right? Now I can put everything in one, or I can put them in different classes. There's a third way. What's the third way? And I forgot just to keep this. The previous way was like with the method one. This was this, just so you can keep track of what was before. Just would like to keep the code, all of them, so you can just go back to them. There's a third way, which is the one that I told you. This is called, by the way, these are called named inner classes. Named inner classes because they have names. And you can have an inner class that is anonymous. You don't have a name. It's kind of a weird thing, but this is basically what you're going to be using a lot. Let me show you what is that other thing. So this is like method 1. This is going to be method 2. And even the method 2, I'm going to change it. Now, notice this count up. I'm going to remove it. Well, just comment it. So let's put this is method 2. And this one is method 1. So now this method 2, this countdown, I'll leave it like this just so you can compare the new thing that I'm going to do with this button count up. So in the add action listener, I'm going to create an anonymous class that implements the action listener. How to do that? I'm just going to create a new action listener. And let me just do it manually. So when you create a new action listener, you're able to put the code, the same code, override public. What was it? What was it? Public void action performed action event. I can name it whatever you want, but E is like the default one. Now what this is going to do, this is going to mention what should happen when I click on this button count up. What should happen is that I just prepare on the fly an object of an action listener by implementing, well, because this is an interface, I need to implement it. So actually it's going to create a class that implements this action listener, and it's within the call of the method. So you see this is still in between parentheses in the call of that method. And this is going to just to put the same code that I had before on this one.
That's the anonymous.
And this is the anonymous in a class. Now let me just run it so you can see it's still working. The same way the other one was working. But just I don't have to give it a name and put it somewhere down there and make it private, because I'm just using this whole inner class just for this. So let's just design one anonymous inner class instead, because I'm not going to be using it again in another purpose. The only purpose of this inner class is only to be able to manage this action performed, and that's what how can I can do it. Yes.
Why it's inside the parentheses?
What's inside the what?
The parentheses.
Because this is what I used to do. You see, before that, what did I do? I create an object from that inner class.
This.
So I create a new object from the inner class. Now this is what I'm doing. I'm creating a new object from the inner class that I'm just defining at the same time. That's why it's called anonymous, because this is the name of the inner class, count up. What's the name of this one? It doesn't have a name.
Can I apply it on the down counter?
On the what? Yes, of course, it's the same thing.
Same
Yes, same idea. Except for the down, it's going to be minus minus.
Can you do it?
You want to see it? Okay. So let's do method 1 again. Method 2. So if I'd like to do it again for here, what I need to do is to button count down dot add action listener, and it's new action. Actually, it means helps you. Just you type new action listener because it's an interface. You see, it just created these things, the default thing for you. All you need to do is just to change the code and put the code that you want. I'm just going to put this code with the change to minus minus. Now let's run it again. Let me stop. I'll run again. This is count up, count down. Just to make sure it works using this one, I'm just going to comment this thing, just to make sure that this is not the inner class that is going to be used. And you see, actually it's not, because I'm attaching this action performed to this new action listener, and the same thing for this one. So as you can see now, count up goes up and goes down.
This way is more convenient. Easier.
It's more convenient, exactly, because of the way we use it. If I was using the inner class to do other things, I will keep better in inner class. But because that's used only for managing the events, it's easier for me to use that. Now the last thing I'm going to do is to add this button reset, which is basically another button, and call it reset. So the reset is just going to be defined. Let me just, this is count up. I'm going to, well, let's go down here and do button reset. I need just to initialize that new button, and with the text reset. Now I'm just going to also create an anonymous add action listener, new action listener, and just change this. And what I need to do is basically set the value, put it back to 0, and then display that value in the text field. Maybe, but I'm not sure. It might be confusing. You can put it 0 and then between parentheses inside. That's just going to be confusing.
The container. Did you do it from this one?
The what?
The container.
The container?
Yes.
I'm not sure to understand. Yes, sir. Yeah. I need to add it down here. Yes, exactly. Yes, I need to add it to the container. So button reset. But of course I need to maybe increase the size again, just so it can have enough space for that button as well. So count up, count down, and reset. Reset. Yes.
How can I program it so I can use auto up, auto down?
That's the. I don't have time, unfortunately, to just go into the details. It will take some time. So I'd like you to practice this, but the details of your question is found here. So on this website, just have a look at this example that was, I don't know which one it is. Now it's just not, okay. Yes, here. This example about this one, this key event demo. Just check this one. This one. It's so slow. I don't know why. It's just there's a lag. So with this one, this key event demo, this is the class, this is the code. Have a look at it. This is, you know, this the code in red is explaining how to deal with those things. Yes.